The desperate plea. The crystalline towers of Valeria Prime burned like dying stars against the obsidian void of space. Captain Zara Nightfall pressed her pale blue palm against the reinforced viewport of the orbital defense platform, watching, helplessly as another section of her homeworld's atmosphere ignited under the relentless bombardment. The Void Swarm had arrived 3 days ago, their shadow-black ships materializing from the depths of dark space like nightmares given form. "Captain," called Lieutenant Orion Darkstorm from the communications console, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "The southern continent's shield generators have failed. The evacuation transports—" His voice cracked. "They're not going to make it." Zara closed her silver eyes, her elongated ears picking up the subtle vibrations of another explosion somewhere, far below. The Valerians had always been a peaceful people, their slender 7-foot frames evolved for grace and contemplation rather than warfare. Their society had flourished for millennia through art, philosophy, and scientific advancement. They had never needed weapons of mass destruction, because they had never encountered anyone who wished them harm. Until now. The Void Swarm was something from the galaxy's darkest legends, a nomadic collective of creatures that consumed entire civilizations, leaving behind nothing but empty space and scattered debris. They traveled in living ships that fed on stellar energy, growing stronger with each world they devoured. 43 star systems had fallen to them in the past decade, their populations either killed or absorbed into the collective consciousness that drove the swarm forward. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Darkstorm continued, "Ambassador Stormwind is requesting immediate conference. He says it's urgent." Zara straightened her midnight blue uniform, forcing herself to project calm authority despite the chaos surrounding them. "Put him through." The holographic projection of Ambassador Keth Stormwind materialized before her, his ancient features etched with lines of desperate determination. At over 300 years old, Stormwind was among the eldest of their people, his white hair flowing like starlight down his shoulders. Behind him, the great archive was in flames, millennia of accumulated knowledge burning away like morning mist. "Zara," he said, his melodic voice cutting through the static of damaged communications arrays. "I may have found something, a possibility however remote. Ambassador, we've already sent distress calls to every known civilization within 50 light years. Those who could respond have already been consumed by the swarm. Those who might have helped are too distant to arrive in time." Stormwind shook his head, holding up a crystalline data core that pulsed with soft amber light. "Not the current galactic records, child. I mean the truly ancient archives, diplomatic contacts from before the Great Isolation, when our people first ventured beyond our system." Zara leaned forward, grasping at any thread of hope. "What did you find?" "A species called humans," Stormwind said, activating the data core. Primitive holographic images flickered to life, showing a small blue-green world orbiting a modest yellow star. "According to our records from 6 centuries ago, they assisted in defending the Kepler mining colonies when the crystal devourers attacked. The survivors spoke of human ingenuity and courage, how they fought alongside other species despite being vastly outmatched technologically. The tactical display showed crude spacecraft held together with metal alloys and chemical propulsion systems, technology that seemed almost laughably primitive compared to Valerian antimatter drives and quantum field manipulators." Zara studied the data with growing skepticism. "Ambassador, these records are ancient. Even if these humans still exist, they were barely capable of interplanetary travel when our ancestors first observed them. What could they possibly do against the Void Swarm?" Stormwind gripped the data core tighter as another shockwave rattled the archive around him. "What choice do we have, Zara? Every conventional option has failed. Perhaps their perspective, their different way of thinking, might offer something we haven't considered. Sometimes the smallest pebble can start an avalanche." Before Zara could respond, the platform's emergency klaxons began wailing. "Captain," shouted Tactical Officer Nix Moonblade, "massive swarm formation detected entering the inner system. Over 400 vessels, including 12 Devourer-class bioships. Estimated arrival at Valeria Prime. 16 hours." Zara felt her twin hearts sink into her stomach. 400 ships against their remaining defensive force of 18 damaged vessels. It would be genocide. She looked back at Stormwind's weathered face, seeing her own desperation reflected in his ancient eyes. "Send the message," she ordered. "If these humans are our last hope, then we pray they remember the friendship our peoples once shared." 28 light-years away, in the Sol system, Fleet Admiral Marcus Ironhold was reviewing tactical assessments in his command center aboard Luna Station when the priority alert chimed. At 52, Ironhold had spent his entire adult life in service to the United Earth Defense Coalition, his weathered face bearing the scars of conflicts across 3 sectors of human space. His steel-gray hair was cropped military short, and his dark eyes held the hard wisdom of someone who had seen too many battles. "Admiral," announced Commander Jake Thunderbolt, his aide-de-camp, "we're receiving an emergency transmission. Origin unknown, but the signal characteristics suggest extrasolar origin." "Define unknown, Commander." "Sir, it's from an alien species calling themselves Valerians. They're requesting immediate military assistance against something called the Void Swarm." Ironhold looked up sharply from his tactical displays. In his 30 years of command, humanity had never encountered genuine alien intelligence. There had been theories, speculation, even a few false alarms, but nothing confirmed. "Military assistance? From us?" "Yes, sir. The message includes detailed, tactical data about this Void Swarm entity. According to their intelligence, we're looking at a nomadic force that has consumed over 40 civilizations in the past decade." Ironhold stood and walked to his office's massive viewport, looking out at the sprawling military complex of Luna Station. Hundreds of ships moved in precise formations, sleek destroyers, massive battle cruisers, and the pride of Earth's fleet. 5 Titan-class dreadnoughts that could crack continents with their main batteries. The human military had evolved from Earth's scattered nation-states into a unified force protecting colonies across 67 star systems. "Get Dr. Starweaver up here immediately," Ironhold ordered, "and patch me through to the Joint Chiefs. If this is authentic, we need to move fast." Dr. Victoria Starweaver, the Coalition's chief xenobiology specialist, worked through the night analyzing the Valerian transmission. Her team of linguists and scientists confirmed what seemed impossible. This was humanity's first contact with a genuinely alien intelligence. The mathematical constants and physical laws referenced in their message proved they came from a technologically advanced civilization. The biological data they've included suggests they're humanoid but distinctly non-human, she reported to Ironhold the next morning, her red hair disheveled from hours of intense study. "Their planet shows signs of advanced technology, and their distress call indicates they're facing extinction from this Void Swarm entity." Captain Jake Thunderbolt, Ironhold's longtime tactical advisor, studied the combat data with growing alarm. "Admiral, if their intelligence is accurate, we're looking at a nomadic species that grows stronger with every victory. Think of them as a cross between a virus and a military force. They don't just conquer, they absorb and adapt." Ironhold nodded grimly. "And if they consume these Valerians?" "Then they'll eventually find us," Thunderbolt replied. "Species like this don't stop expanding until they're stopped by force." Within hours, the Coalition Emergency Council convened. Admiral Ironhold presented the situation to the assembled leaders of human space. Their holographic forms gathered around the massive conference table. The debate was brief, but intense. "We're talking about committing significant military resources to defend a species we've never met," argued Counselor Park, her Korean accent sharp with concern. "What if this is some kind of elaborate trap?" "What if it isn't?" Ironhold countered. "The data suggests the Valerians are peaceful researchers and artists. If we abandon them to save our own resources, what does that say about humanity's principles?" Council President Williams studied the tactical displays showing the Void Swarm's projected expansion patterns. "If this threat is real, it will eventually reach human space regardless of whether we act now. Better to fight them while we have potential allies." The vote was unanimous. Ironhold would take the Third Fleet to assist the Valerians. The mobilization began immediately. 300 ships of the Third Fleet prepared for the longest jump in human military history. The flagship Indomitable, a massive Titan-class dreadnought, bristling with antimatter cannons and quantum torpedo arrays, would lead the force. Accompanying it were 60 heavy battlecruisers, 90 destroyers, 80 support vessels, and 70 specialized assault carriers loaded with fighter wings. As Ironhold stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the final preparations, Dr. Starweaver approached with a puzzled expression. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the Valerian records they sent us. According to their data, they observed Earth over 600 years ago. Their information shows us as having just developed chemical rockets and basic radio communication." Ironhold raised an eyebrow. "They think we're still at that technological level?" "It appears so. Their message suggests they expect us to send perhaps a single ship, maybe a diplomatic envoy. They have no idea what humanity has become." Captain Thunderbolt joined the conversation, shaking his head in amazement. "So they reached out to what they thought was a barely spacefaring species for help against a galaxy-spanning threat? That takes either incredible desperation or remarkable faith in the power of friendship." "Both, I think," Ironhold replied, looking out at his massive fleet. "Well, they're about to get the surprise of their lives." "All ships report ready status," announced the navigation officer. "All ships ready, Admiral," came the response from across the fleet. Ironhold took a deep breath. "Execute jump." The stars shifted, and 300 human warships vanished into hyperspace, racing toward a desperate battle 28 light-years away. When giants answer back on Valeria Prime, Captain Zara Nightfall stood in what remained of the Planetary Defense Center, watching helplessly as the Void Swarm began their final assault. The obsidian bioships descended like a plague of metallic locusts, their organic hulls pulsing with bioluminescent veins that carried stolen energy from consumed worlds. The sky burned crimson with the light of falling cities, and the screams of her people echoed through the communication channels. "Any response from the humans?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would crush what little hope remained. "Nothing, Captain," reported Lieutenant Darkstorm, his voice barely above a whisper. "Even if they received our message, they would need time to prepare any response. Time we simply don't have." Commander Dex Voidhunter, one of the few surviving officers from the outer defense perimeter, limped into the command center. His left arm hung useless at his side, and purple blood stained his silver uniform. "Captain, we've lost the final shield generators. The Devourer-class bioships are beginning atmospheric entry. I estimate we have perhaps 2 hours before total planetary sterilization begins." Zara nodded, accepting their fate with the stoic grace her people were known for. "Then we make our final stand here. Every moment we buy might allow some of our people to escape to the outer colonies." She had just reached for her ceremonial blade when Tactical Officer Moonblade called out in shock. "Captain, massive energy signatures detected at the system's edge. Something's jumping in." The tactical display erupted with new contacts. One after another, ships materialized in Valerian space. Small ships, massive ships, vessels whose energy signatures were completely unknown to Valerian technology. The readings were so intense they overloaded several sensor arrays. "How many?" Zara whispered, afraid to hope. Moonblade's voice cracked as she counted. "Over 300 vessels, Captain. The largest energy signatures are off our scales. Whatever, these ships are, they're more advanced than anything in our databases." "Are they swarm reinforcements?" Commander Voidhunter asked, his good hand instinctively moving to his sidearm. "No, sir. The hull configurations are completely different, and they're broadcasting on the frequency the humans promised to use." Zara stared at the display in disbelief. The small pebble Ambassador Stormwind had spoken of was turning out to be an avalanche beyond their wildest dreams. Humanity had not just answered their call for help, they had sent an entire armada. As the human fleet moved deeper into the system, the Void Swarm forces began adjusting their formations, recognizing that a new and potentially dangerous threat had entered the battlefield. The massive Devourer-class bioships, creatures the size of cities fused with technology stolen from dozens of conquered civilizations, turned their attention from the dying planet to face this unexpected challenger. "Captain Nightfall," came a new voice over the communication system, speaking perfect Valerian through advanced translation protocols. This is Admiral Rex Stormbreaker of the United Earth Defense Coalition. We received your distress call. Sorry we're late to the party. The bridge of the Indomitable hummed with controlled energy as Fleet Admiral Marcus Ironhold studied the tactical situation unfolding before them. The holographic display showed the Valerian system in stark detail, a beautiful blue-green world, surrounded by a cloud of predatory biomechanical ships that pulsed with malevolent energy, like a swarm of technological parasites. Initial scan complete, Admiral, reported Commander Hayes from the sensor station. Confirmed, 12 Devourer-class bioships, each approximately 4 kilometers in length. Estimated total swarm force, 437 vessels of EMI, various classifications. Captain Thunderbolt whistled low. They weren't exaggerating about the threat level. Those Devourers read as partially organic. They're literally growing their ships. Dr. Starweaver, monitoring from her station, added grimly. The biological components appear to be assimilated from previous civilizations. I'm detecting cellular structures from at least 15 different species integrated into their hull matrix. It's like they're wearing the corpses of entire worlds. General Nova Steelwind, commander of the fleet's ground forces, studied the enemy formations with professional interest. Her cybernetic eye glowed softly as it analyzed the tactical data. Admiral, these creatures have been adapting and evolving their combat doctrines for decades. Every engagement teaches them something new. Status of Valerian defenses? Ironhold asked. Minimal, Hayes replied. 14 vessels remaining operational, all showing critical damage. Their planetary shields are failing in multiple sectors. From the energy signatures, I estimate they have perhaps 3 hours before complete surface bombardment begins. Admiral, came the voice of Lieutenant Commander Torres. The Valerians are requesting direct communication. Put them through. The main display shifted to show a slender humanoid figure with pale blue skin and large, expressive silver eyes that held a mixture of hope and disbelief. Her pointed ears were longer than human ears, and her uniform bore the elegant design aesthetic that seemed to characterize Valerian culture. Admiral Ironhold, the Valerian said, her melodic voice carrying both gratitude and amazement. I am Captain Zara Nightfall of the Valeria Prime Defense Force. We cannot express our gratitude that you have come, though I must confess we did not expect quite so many of you. Ironhold smiled grimly. Captain Nightfall, your intelligence on our capabilities appears to be somewhat outdated. We'll discuss that later. Right now, let's focus on dealing with your uninvited guests. Admiral, our records indicate these creatures have destroyed over 40 civilizations in the past decade. They adapt to every weapon system they encounter, incorporating defeated technologies into their collective knowledge. Our quantum pulse weapons were effective for perhaps 4 engagements before they developed complete countermeasures. Captain Blaze Starfury, leader of the fleet's fighter squadrons, leaned forward with interest. How long did that adaptation process take? Approximately 8 hours for basic countermeasures, 24 hours for complete immunity. Nightfall, replied Dr. Phoenix Lightbringer, the fleet's chief weapons specialist, smiled with predatory satisfaction. Admiral, that gives us a significant advantage. Ironhold raised an eyebrow. Explain. They adapt to technologies they've encountered, but human weapon systems have developed in complete isolation from galactic warfare. Our specific approaches to combat, our tactical doctrines, our weapons, it's all completely unknown to them. They'll need time to analyze and counter our methods. Time we're going to make sure they don't get, Admiral Stormbreaker declared over the fleet communication channel. He had assumed tactical command of the engagement while Ironhold coordinated overall strategy. The human fleet moved with precision that astounded the Valerians. 300 ships arranged themselves in combat formations that seemed to flow like liquid mercury, each vessel perfectly positioned to support its neighbors while maintaining optimal firing angles and escape routes. My ancestors' records spoke of human courage, Captain Nightfall whispered to Commander Voidhunter. But they said nothing about this level of military sophistication. Look at their formations. It's like watching a dance of death, the first. Engagement began when a squadron of swarm biofighters broke from the main formation to probe the human defenses. These creatures were nightmarish fusions of insect and machine, their carapaces gleaming with stolen metals, while organic eyes tracked targets with predatory intelligence. Admiral Stormbreaker watched calmly as 50 enemy vessels approached his outer screening force. Destroyer Squadron 7, you are cleared to engage. Acknowledged, Admiral. Wolf Squadron moving to intercept. What happened next redefined Valerian understanding of space combat. The human destroyers didn't simply fire at the approaching biofighters. They executed a complex tactical maneuver called the hammer and anvil, splitting their formation to allow devastating crossfire while preventing the enemy from concentrating their response. Their weapon systems cycled through multiple firing modes: plasma cannons, antimatter missiles, and quantum disruptors that tore through bioarmor like it was tissue paper. In 63 seconds, 50 swarm fighters were reduced to drifting debris. Incredible, breathed Ambassador Stormwind, who had joined Nightfall in the command center despite the danger. Their tactical coordination is beyond anything I have ever witnessed. It's as if each ship knows exactly what every other ship will do before they do it. The Void Swarm responded by launching 300 fighters simultaneously, attempting to overwhelm the human screening force through sheer numbers. This time the human carriers deployed their own fighters, and the Valerians got their first look at human pilot training. Captain Blaze Starfree led the charge in his modified interceptor lightning strike, his squadron of elite pilots flowing behind him like a pack of hunting wolves. Human fighters moved like extensions of their pilot's will, executing maneuvers that seemed to violate several laws of physics. Their weapon systems rotated through multiple firing modes, never allowing the biofighters time to adapt to any single approach. All wings, execute pattern Delta 7, Starfury commanded, his voice calm despite piloting at velocities that would have liquefied most beings. Remember, these things learn fast, so keep changing your attack vectors. Don't give them time to figure us out. The human pilots had trained for decades in virtual reality simulations that pushed the boundaries of possibility. They had wargamed against every theoretical enemy they could imagine, including adaptive biomechanical collectives exactly like the Void Swarm. Captain Nightfall, Admiral Ironhold called over the communication link. Your pilots are fighting like they've encountered the swarm before. How is that possible? Simulation training, Captain, Ironhold replied, never taking his eyes off the tactical display. For the past century, we've wargamed against every theoretical enemy we could imagine. We prepare for wars we hope never to fight. You prepared for an enemy you had never met? Hope for the best, prepare for the worst? Captain Thunderbolt answered. It's an old human saying. As the fighter engagement continued, the massive Devourer-class bioships began moving toward the human main force. These creatures were clearly the command and control units of the swarm, their biomechanical forms bristling with weapon systems that had been refined through the conquest of dozens of civilizations. Admiral, Devourers are accelerating toward our position, reported Commander Hayes. Energy buildup suggests they're preparing to fire their primary weapons, some kind of organic plasma cannon that fires concentrated stellar energy. General, Steelwind studied the approaching bioships with tactical appreciation. Those things are mobile fortresses. Our standard weapons might not penetrate their adaptive armor. Dr. Lightbringer smiled grimly from her weapons control station. Admiral, recommend we deploy the Prometheus package, the experimental antimatter warheads. If these creatures truly are biomechanical hybrids, concentrated antimatter should disrupt both their organic and technological components simultaneously. They can't adapt to raw annihilation. Ironhold nodded. All battlecruisers target the lead Devourer. Prepare synchronized bombardment with Prometheus warheads. 60 heavy battlecruisers opened fire simultaneously, their antimatter torpedoes and plasma cannons focusing on a single massive biotitan. The creature's adaptive bioarmor began analyzing the incoming weapons, its organic computers working frantically to develop countermeasures. But antimatter was not a weapon system that could be adapted to. It was the fundamental force of annihilation itself. The lead Devourer simply ceased to exist, consumed by a miniature star that blazed for 17 seconds before fading to nothing. The remaining swarm forces hesitated for the first time in decades, their collective intelligence struggling to process what had just happened. In that moment of uncertainty, Admiral Stormbreaker gave the order that would end the battle. All ships, general advance. Show them what happens when giants answer the call. 300 human warships surged forward like an avalanche of steel and fire, their combined firepower reshaping the very fabric of space around them. The Void Swarm, for the first time in their existence, broke ranks and fled into the dark between stars. On Valeria Prime, Captain Zara Nightfall watched the impossible victory unfold on her tactical displays, tears of relief streaming down her pale blue cheeks. The small pebble had indeed become an avalanche of human ships, human courage, and human friendship that had saved her entire civilization. The age of galactic isolation was over. Humanity had announced itself to the galaxy, not with words, but with the thunder of antimatter cannons and the unbreakable promise that no peaceful species would ever stand alone again.